right, welcome everyone. Thank you for your patience as we got this running. My name is Tricia Albertson. So today I do get to educate you a little bit on some things that I've become aware of over the last 30 years. I started out in pre-med. I didn't follow through with that. We became business owners and I married and my life went a little bit different direction. But for the last almost 18 years, we've been in the natural health industry. So I've been able to work with some of the top doctors and researchers around the world. It's taken my education of the body down paths that I did not even expect to go down. So hopefully today you'll learn something that maybe you didn't know. And you might just come out of here even smarter than your doctor in some areas. So I've talked to multiple doctors over the last few years as I tell them the different processes that I'm about to share with you. It's very rare that I find one that knows what I'm talking about, and the ones that do are very excited and very quick to agree with what we've found, and the others are very fascinated to learn. So today you're going to get a little insight into processes in your body you may not have even heard of before. So take some notes. Hopefully you'll come out of here a little smarter than you came in. I'm going to go ahead and share screen. Today we're going to start with inflammation. You've all heard about inflammation. I'm going to go a little deeper into it. We're just going to touch on this really quickly if this is stuff you may not know, or it might just be a review, but bear with me. So everyone has inflammation, whether we know about it or not. The acute inflammation is the inflammation that we can feel, right? It comes from an injury or overworking, maybe exercising, that lactic acid and things that we feel the next day has inflammation in it. And that's our body letting us know that we've pushed things a little farther than maybe normal. Maybe a twist as we're walking, or it can even come from a virus. If we get sick, we have inflammation that is left over. I also want to make sure that you understand the chronic inflammation that we all have. This is inflammation you may not be aware of. We don't necessarily feel it. It's been referred to as a burning inside the body, but we don't feel it. And yet, if it's, constantly putting the body into a state of, frustration and stress, it can lead to damage of your tissues, of your organs. And if it's left unchecked, it's going to turn into something like cancer or maybe a stroke, heart attack, something that could be life-ending, or maybe just something that's debilitating like a rheumatoid arthritis, diabetes, obesity, dementia, decline in our brain. We definitely have it, and it definitely leads down paths that are not wanted. What are some of the symptoms that we have chronic inflammation? Unexplained fatigue, body pain, depression, anxiety, headaches, water retention, congestion can come from it, loss of appetite, bloating, skin issues. Sometimes there's skin issues that people can't explain, and it's coming from inflammation inside the body. A likelihood of getting infections that come back over and over and over. Anything gastrointestinal, obviously, a lot of these things on this list are gastrointestinal. But a lot of these things that people can't explain, why am I gaining so much weight? Why do I have this emotional weight, depression or anxiety? Why is there this pain that can't be explained? A lot of times it's stemming back to chronic inflammation inside of our bodies. What causes it? Infection or injury where it's not treated properly, it's not treated well enough, can leave that inflammation in our bodies. A lot of us are aware of people that are dealing with long haulers that have had COVID over the last couple of years and have had things that have continued. That's chronic inflammation that's come from that virus that has left something behind. Autoimmune disorders can cause chronic inflammation. Long-term exposure to things like pesticides. If you know people that are killing bugs for a living, they have chronic inflammation as a byproduct of that. People that work in toxic environments where they're breathing in exhaust, or they're breathing in chemicals, or they're exposed to anything that is harmful to the body. It might just be, having to walk in and out of a building every day where there's a smoking area to the side, and they're breathing that secondhand smoke can lead to chronic inflammation. Things that we're choosing to put into our body that can be harmful over time. I'm not here to teach you, what you should be doing or drinking or being around, but just know that those things cause inflammation. And so it's something that we might be exposing ourselves to, or it might just be stress, right? The world and our work day, our lives, our families, the speed at which we run causes stress. And one of the byproducts of that you don't see is this inflammation that's building up inside your body that could lead to all of those things that we just talked about. So how do we deal with it? How do we treat this inflammation? Medication, and I'm obviously not a big proponent of that. I feel like there's always side effects when we take a medication for something. You're dealing with one thing only to now be dealing with another. Lifestyle changes would be better. Changing your diet, changing your exercise, changing the things that you're putting yourself around if you can. Sometimes we can, sometimes we can't. But supplements are available, and the best known that we've found in the natural supplements is turmeric or curcumin. Curcumin is a breakdown of turmeric. The problem that I recently became aware of is they're both very large molecularly, and so it's hard for the body to absorb it. I was working really hard to try and be able to give you a demonstration today. I wanted to have 2 glasses of water and put a turmeric capsule in one and be able to show you tetrahydrocurcumin, which I'm going to talk about in just a minute, in the other. And I couldn't find anybody with turmeric, and I'm sorry, I didn't want to go buy a whole bottle of it just to show you this. So you're gonna have to take my word for it. There is actually a video online that you can watch, but if you put turmeric capsule into water and stir it, it all floats to the top. It doesn't dissolve into the water because it's so large molecularly. It's really hard for your body and the water to absorb it. So what our scientists have been able to find, the scientists that I work with, have been able to find that if you break down turmeric, it breaks down to curcumin. So that's a better form. If you're ever going to buy it at the store, get curcumin, not turmeric. But it's still hard for your body to absorb it. And if it can't absorb it, is it really doing you any good? That's a question you have to ask yourself. And that applies to any bottle of anything that we're buying at the store. What is its bioavailability? Is it metabolizable by the body? Can it be absorbed to actually do the good that it's supposed to do? But there are a few scientists that have taken this even further, and they've studied curcumin, and they've figured out that inside the body, it breaks it down to a component called tetrahydrocurcumin, and that is the only portion that is actually upregulated by the body and metabolized by the body. So the scientists that we work with have been able to isolate tetrahydrocurcumin, and that's the only portion that they work with. Now it's hard to find, but we have a source where we can get you just the straight tetrahydrocurcumin. It's about 4 molecules of the turmeric plant, but then you're not paying for all this other portion of it that's just going to go down the drain. You're paying just for the part that is good for the anti-inflammation. They have to wrap it in a special patented process because it's so small to be able to get it into the body and have it time release in the intestinal tract rather than getting destroyed in the stomach. The stomach acids would just decimate those little tiny molecules. But we want it to get through to the intestines where it can be absorbed. And as a result, it's actually working really, really fast. So people that are taking turmeric for pain or inflammation may not be getting as good of results as they could if they had this tetrahydrocurcumin that would go straight to the source and be absorbed and be metabolized in the body and be able to be felt in 30 to 45 minutes. So we talked about this. It's wrapped in this patented Siloc Dexkey wrap that allows it to get through and be absorbed and felt in under an hour. Now it's also working on that inside inflammation that you're not going to feel. So not necessarily going to feel it right away, but it might start to be able to help your body get into more of a balanced state. So if your inflammation is causing the anxiety or the obesity or the gastro problems, you might be able to start seeing a benefit of that over time as it works on the interior. But for most people, if it's out of sight, it's out of mind, we don't think about it. But the pain industry of what people are feeling is a $635 billion industry. People are pouring money into anti-pain medication so that they can get rid of pain. So here's something that is natural, that's not going to have the harmful side effects, that is going to be able to treat the pain, whether it's coming from the acute inflammation that they feel in a joint, in a, all of those things that we discussed, from exercise or injury, and be able to deal with their pain in a more sustainable method that's not going to cause the long-term damage that a heavy medication would. Some of the side effects that come from medication are absolutely unacceptable, in my opinion. And I do know from firsthand, my husband has had multiple injuries. He's on some very serious medication. Being able to be on this tetrahydrocurcumin has allowed him to come down on his doses. So he'll never come completely off. Some of his pain is not coming from inflammation, it's coming from nerves and brain issue. He has phantom pain that is a completely different story. So depending on what the pain is caused by, I've seen people come off of all prescription medication using a tetrahydrocurcumin as an alternative if the pain is all caused by inflammation. So just an option for you so that you understand we all have it. We can deal with it now or we can deal with it later. I know a lot of people that looked healthy on the outside, everything was going great. They go to lunch and have a heart attack in their soup. And I don't mean that flippantly. It's happened to a friend of my sister where she had just talked to her and did not come back from lunch. So it can happen really quickly. It can happen really fast. We either deal with the inflammation now or we'll deal with it later. The next thing I want to talk to you about is butyric acid, and this is a fun one that, as I talk to a lot of doctors, they've never even heard of it. It's a short chain fatty acid. There's only 3 that really affect our gut, but it's not something that the doctors have been able to utilize because it has a really interesting side effect that we'll talk about here in just a minute. And because it wasn't available to the public, really, the doctors didn't study it, didn't know about it. But it's created in the gut. If we have healthy bacteria in our gut and we have a good microbiome of healthy bacteria going on, it can create butyric acid in our body. Otherwise, most of us don't have a healthy gut, don't have a healthy enough gut to do it. And so most people walking around are depleted of this butyric acid. They got it as a child, it comes in colostrum, but how long does that last? 3 days? 4 days. Also comes in butter, but I don't know about you. I don't know anybody that's walking around chewing on a stick of butter. And ghee, I had not even heard of. It's a natural alternative for butter. Has it in it as well. But most of us, let's face it, are not getting enough butter or ghee in our diets to be able to put this short chain fatty acid back into the body. And if our bodies aren't creating it, that's a problem, because this butyric acid is incredible. The more I've learned about this, the more I've heard about this, it just blows my mind. And it's now becoming more known. I actually was watching a YouTube video and an ad popped up a few weeks ago, and I actually watched the whole thing. That's really rare for me. Usually I'm skipping through and stopping it as soon as they give you the option. But this one was talking about all the issues in the gut and the brain, and I was just fascinated and got to the end, and it was about butyric acid, and I thought, the doctors are finally starting to understand. But the scientists that we work with have known about it for a long time. It does so much for the gut and the brain. There's a link between the gut and the brain that is becoming more known. And issues that we thought were gut issues often start in the brain, and things that we thought were brain issues often start in the gut. They're very connected. I was fascinated to learn that our gut has neurons just like our brain does. So when you talk about having a gut instinct, it's actually the neurons in there that are thinking. So it's not as far-fetched as it might sound. There's actually science behind that. If you have a dog and you've been able to train your dog and you realize how smart some of them can be, your gut has as many neurons as a dog's brain. Could you teach your gut to sit and stay? Probably not. It doesn't need to. But just understand that we have this ability to think. So when you get that gut instinct, listen to it. That's kind of a side topic here. But here, this butyric acid feeds the gut. So they say 7 out of 10 of us are walking around with some form of leaks in our gut. That is terrible. How that manifests for most people is allergies, because things are seeping through the gut lining and getting into the bloodstream that shouldn't. We're all breathing in chemicals, whether we work around it or not. The air is not as pure as it was hundreds of years ago. So we all have pollutants and things that we're taking in, and we all have to be aware of those things. But that leaky gut, or the leaks in our gut lining, can lead to all sorts of different problems. And 7 out of 10 right now walking around have that going on. This helps to create more of a healthy biome. So butyric acid is actually the food that the endothelial and epithelial cells inside of our body eat. So it's food for those cells. So if the cells aren't getting fed, they're starting to shrivel and they're starting to pull apart. That's where that leak comes from in the gut. But if you can put butyric back in, and it starts to feed those cells and they get a nice tight lining in the stomach, now your healthy biome can start to create more. So you're not only feeding it the butyric acid, but you're also allowing the body to create more of its own, because you've created a healthy environment. If you can if you can partner butyric acid with probiotics and prebiotics, it's even better. You're really feeding the system what it needs to have beautiful digestive health. It also can create more mitochondria. So if you remember back to biology class, mitochondria is what? The powerhouse of the cell. It's the engine. So we all want that. So how big is the energy industry? It's huge. But if you can actually give people more energy naturally because their body is creating more engines, it's creating more mitochondria, that's a really, really big deal. Let's talk about the brain, because it does affect both. It's that link between the two that's so important. So in the brain, it's creating more neurons, probably in the gut too, right? Now that we know there's neurons in the gut, but it creates more neurons. And I didn't realize that that was even possible. I come from a family line of, there's some mental decline as people get older. There's been a process of a lot of Alzheimer's and things that have gotten really severe. And so I'm very on the lookout for things that can strengthen the brain. So this was very interesting to me. And I thought that you had a set number of neurons, and as we got older, if they got damaged or they, fell apart, stopped thinking you were just out of luck. And now I'm realizing that if we feed it properly, you can create more. That was a big deal for me. It also creates better synapses between the neurons. We've actually been helping my father-in-law with some of these natural products and seen that not only were we strengthening his immune system, he had diabetes and was in pain clinics a lot. And so during COVID, we were really concerned because he's older and he has enough health conditions that to have him around doctor's offices was not the best place he could be. We really didn't want him getting COVID and becoming a statistic. And he was so vigilant on taking the natural supplements that he literally never got it, and was able to speed up his circulation. So his wounds started to heal. The doctors were super impressed. And as a result of that, he stopped saying the same things over and over and over. We were watching him go down that path where he was asking the same questions over and over and over. Now when we talk to him, his memory is sharp. He has great conversations, his cognitive ability, and so all of that came as a byproduct of what it's doing for the brain side, right? We were focusing on the health of the immune system, which lies in the gut, and forgot that this product doesn't differentiate. It's going to feed the gut and the brain. So you might want to take it because you've got some sort of a digestive issue, and then all of a sudden your brain fog goes away. Well, that's a good side effect. We're used to taking products with side effects. The thing about taking a natural product is the side effects could be astonishingly good. Another thing that it does is it increases BDNF, and that's probably something you haven't heard of. So we're teaching you about butyric acid. There's an education growth, and we're teaching you about brain-derived neurotropic factor. So I talked with one of the brain specialists that I happen to know. He is one of the top neurologists in the world. He's done tens of thousands of brain surgeries. We used to make jokes as a child, well, I'm not a brain surgeon. Well, this friend of mine is. He's actually one of the men that wrote the protocol for concussions. And he's one of the top leading experts on the brain. And I asked him, explain this BDNF to me. And he said, it's kind of like miracle grow for your brain. So for the layman explanation on that, it's feeding your brain. It's giving it all of the extra power to be better and stronger. So that also caught my attention really big. But what we're seeing is that people that have something awry in their brain, lack of ability to focus, a scattered thought process. We're seeing this with kids that are on the spectrum big time. So as they can start to get that BDNF production, they're focusing, they're calming down, they're finishing projects, they're listening in class. Parents are getting notes sent home of a completely different nature saying, what have you done to this child? It's like a different person. So that's been super fun. We're watching kids that are on the autistic scale that are jumping up the scale and learning new abilities, speaking more clearly, having better ability to function in society. Kids that had been reclusive and at home now being able to go out and get a job or be able to get a boyfriend or a girlfriend and get out into the world and have more ability to function. Kids that weren't talking that are now able to talk. So whatever it is, it's taking them up on the spectrum. Now, it's not going to cure it. It's not going to make them, completely whole. But if you can improve somebody's ability to function, if you can make their life quality better, that's huge. It also increases dopamine and serotonin in the brain. It's helping balance those hormones that help us be happy. It also balances other hormones as well. But these are my two favorite because I feel like the whole world needs a shot of happy right now. So that's a really, really big deal. Who do you know that's just feeling a little bit off? That has the brain fog or has the anxiety or the depression? They're all around us. That's really, really common. And 7 out of 10 with a gut issue, this is a really big deal. So why isn't butyric acid on every shelf? If it's something that's so incredibly important and makes such a difference, well, it has a really unique smell. You've all smelled it. So if you've ever been around anybody that's had the stomach flu, that really acidic, pungent smell that smells with that, that's the butyric acid from the gut. So do you know anybody that would want to put that into their body? That's why it's not on every store shelf. You can find it. I've been searching online to see what else is out there, and I've found some sodium butyrates, but they're adding so much to it to try and mask the smell that you're messing with that short chain fatty acid. The body is a perfectly running machine when everything is working right. When we put something back into it that mirrors but is not quite right, you're not going to get quite the same results as what we just talked about, being able to help the gut and the brain. So sodium butyrate, butyrate and butyric acid are pretty much synonymous with each other. It's just different wording. But adding in salt is going to alter the state. So our scientists have been able to use that same patented process of wrapping the molecules and it masks the smell. So Al Zapp is the scientist that we work with. He's been making products specifically for doctors only for decades, and it's just been recently that he's opened up this technology to allow it to go out to the public. But being able to wrap things that couldn't otherwise get into the body is a huge advantage, and I'm excited to see what he's going to come out with next and use that same technology, because it's been amazing. It's what's happening with the tetrahydrocurcumin to keep those molecules together. It's what's happening with the butyric acid to make it so that it can't be smelled or tasted. Now, it breaks down very easily at time release in the body and is very absorbable. That being said, if you put butyric acid into a child's food, a child that is on the spectrum can't swallow, so it would need to be broken open and put in applesauce or yogurt, something that they can eat. That actually works really well, but if you were to put it into a warm bottle, the warm liquid is going to dissolve the coating. So be aware of that. We've been able to give it to babies as young as just a few months old that are showing some symptoms of gastrointestinal distress or different things that have caused a need for that product. It's got to be in something cold. So just a note, but it allows it to get into the body in time release, also in the intestinal tract for optimal absorption. So pretty neat that we have access to this short chain fatty acid that is so needed and is so unknown. Doctors that I'm showing this to are absolutely blown away and excited that this is now available to the public. And literally this brain surgeon that we knew is all over this, because he's been wanting his patients to use butyric acid to help the brain to heal after surgery for decades and couldn't get anybody to take it. Can't imagine why. But now there's a form that doesn't have the smell associated with it. So the next technology that I want to talk to you about comes from a man who has been literally touted with some of the best of the best. Have you heard of the Elliott Crescent medal? I doubt it. It hasn't been given since last century. That sounds so bad. It's in my lifetime. It's probably in your lifetime. But the last time it was given was in 1997. And so it's not been something that's been talked about recently. But this medal was given almost yearly for decades to some of the top doctors, scientists, inventors. They had to create or discover or find something that literally changed all of humanity. So some of the other recipients I know you've heard of would be people like Henry Ford, Alexander Graham Bell, Orville Wright, Madame Curie, von Braun, who did rockets. There's so many different names that have created or found something that literally changed every single life potentially. I know every single one of us probably has a phone within a few feet of us. So thank goodness for Alexander Graham Bell. Henry Ford has certainly made my life easier. We don't live near family, and so being able to drive or being able to fly, thank you to Orville Wright, Henry Ford. I'm grateful for their discoveries, and I'm grateful for the way that they've made my life better. But I'm also grateful for the recipient that received this medal last, because his discovery actually stems back to 1960, but was given out to him in 1997. And it was worded that he got it for discovering the biology of free radical reactions in living organisms. Did you follow that? Let me break it down for you. His nomination, or his award actually, because it was such a big announcement, it got him nominated for the Nobel Prize of Medicine. He discovered an enzyme. So this enzyme is in every cell, in every single one of us, and you probably have never heard of it. It's called superoxide dismutase. I'm going to refer to it going forward as SOD, just because that's a mouthful. But he didn't know what it was doing. It was gobbling up little things in our cells, and he didn't know whether it was good or bad. For a number of years, he studied it, and they actually now measure the little things it was gobbling up. We now know are free radicals, which are not a good thing, and it was gobbling them up. And they actually measure the amount of free radicals in McCord units. This doctor's name is McCord. So it's named after him. He's very notorious in his own little field, but you've probably never heard of him. Today, I'm gonna change that just a little bit. So let me give you a little biology lesson. Forgive my slides, I'm not a computer genius, but I'm gonna try and give you a little bit of a diagram today. So inside of our bodies, in every single cell, there's a nucleus inside the cell. There are free radicals floating around inside the cell. And I know that there are in every single one of us because free radicals are basically the exhaust from our engine. So just like you have exhaust in your car, we have free radicals in our body, all of us. It's unavoidable. Comes every time we expend any energy. So because you're all watching this, I know you got out of bed this morning and you created free radicals. If you ate or drank anything this morning, you created free radicals. If you just took a breath, you just created free radicals. If you're moving, you created free radicals. Do you get my drift? There is no way to avoid them. Dr. McCord has measured that we have over 300 sextillion, that's 23 zeros, on an average day. If you go to the gym, if you eat a big meal, if you jump up and down, you're ahead of that. You have even more. So even though we might be doing the right things, going to the gym is good, the free radicals can be bad. So free radicals bounce around the cell and they hit things, they hit the nucleus, they hit the side of the cell, and they do damage. They're literally destroying the cell from the inside out. So along comes this molecule, this enzyme called SOD. And best, easiest way for me to explain it is it's like Pac-Man. It's going along and it's eating up these free radicals so that they are not destroying the cell from the inside out. If they're left unchecked, free radicals in the cell cause what they call oxidative stress inside our cells, and that leads to cellular damage and eventually cellular death. Oxidative stress has been literally linked to almost every disease that I've ever heard of. We've known about this science for about 12 years, and everybody that's come to me and says, will it help this disease, will it help that disease? You can literally go to PubMed and read about it, and it's linked to every disease that I've looked at except for one, and I couldn't find any link on that one disease, but it was so rare. There's only like 4 cases in the whole United States, and I just don't think they put the millions into the research on that disease because it was so rare. But my gut tells me, those neurons tell me that chances are it's linked to oxidative stress. So if you can lower oxidative stress, you can lower the disease state in the body. So we know that antioxidants take out free radicals. So if you remember 10 years ago, there was a huge antioxidant rush. People were finding antioxidant written on bottles of everything. In fact, we made a game of it. I take my kids to the store. Sorry, we're a little bit weird, I guess. As I'm saying this, that sounds a little odd. But we would make a game of it because we were involved with this science. We knew how important antioxidants were, but we were seeing it. We would see what items we could find on it that were the strangest items. And to date, we found it in dog food, which actually is good for the dogs, so that's not all bad. But we found it in diapers. That will not help you. It does not work through osmosis and sink into your skin. They have to be taken internally. We've seen it in nail polish. Again, not gonna osmosis into your nails. It's not gonna make a difference. But it was such a craze. People knew antioxidants were good and they knew their product would sell better if it said it on the label. So they were putting antioxidant on the label of everything. Here's the problem. How many do we have in our body? 300 sextillion or more? Well, antioxidants work on a one-to-one basis. So one molecule of the best superfood, the best superberry, the best vitamin that you can take, anything you're taking internally as an antioxidant works on a one-to-one basis. So one molecule takes out one free radical and it's one and done. That's like taking a thimbleful of water. Water kills fire, right? Taking a thimbleful of water and throwing it on a house fire. Well, water kills fire, but is it going to do any good to save that house? Not a little bit at all. At all. And that's the problem with antioxidants. They're good, but you would have to eat truckloads of berries or truckloads of vitamins or truckloads of juices to get enough to make any kind of impact on the fire damage that's going on inside our body with this free radical damage. So this SOD enzyme gobbles up 1 million free radicals every second. That's like a fire hose on a fire. It's a constant stream. It's constantly addressing the problem. Well, we all had SOD as a child, and surprise, surprise, you've all heard that our health declines between 20 and 40. When you hit 40, you're over the hump, and you've all heard that, it's all downhill from here. Well, the science behind that is because at about 20 years old, things start to go out of balance in our bodies. They start to get too high, they start to get too low. Things that we're regulating, like this SOD molecule, start to go to sleep. So this enzyme is in every cell, but by the time we're 40, it is non-responsive. It's not eating up any free radicals. So now your free radical damage is getting worse and worse and worse and worse every day. Every time we take a breath, in essence, it's getting worse. So is it any surprise that by the time we're 40, we're dealing with this autoimmune disease or this problem, this disease, this breakdown in the body, because this oxidative stress is getting out of control? So Dr. McCord figured out, he spent about 30 years trying to figure out how to turn that enzyme back on, or to synthetically recreate it. I think was more of his focus, is just to create it, put it in a pill that people could take. Couldn't do it. Finally, in the late 1990s, figured out how to stimulate it to turn it back on. And that's when he got the Elliott-Cresson medal. Because turning that enzyme back on, if you can lower oxidative stress, you can lower disease. But as an amazing byproduct of turning that enzyme back on, he accidentally, I don't think it was intentional because I knew him at that time, and I remember when a few years after that, he figured out that he had actually activated a protein in the process that had also gone to sleep. So there's a protein in our body. So you learned about SOD. Now I'm going to teach you about NRF2. NRF2, I can't even remember the name for it. So if you want it later, if you're a science person and you need the deeper, I'll get you what NRF2 stands for, but I can't remember. But it literally is a signaling protein, and that's what was turning back on the SOD. When you can activate this protein, it's the master balancer within the body. So think about yourself. If you were a piano, sorry, here's my strange analogies again. If you were a piano sitting in grandma's attic, some of your keys are going to get out of tune. In fact, most of them. Some are going to get too sharp, some are going to get too flat, up or down, just like our genes, just like our enzymes inside of our body. Well, NRF2, when it's activated, acts like the piano tuner that comes in and brings the ones that are flat back up, brings the ones that are sharp back down, and brings it back to a beautiful playing instrument. Well, NRF2 activation in the body basically helps your body act like it did when we were young. It's in essence turning back the clock on every cell in your body, bringing that oxidative stress level down 40 or so percent. I've heard as high as 70% reduction. When this protein is balancing in the body, you're getting things running smoothly, just like we did when we were little. So NRF2 regulates literally thousands of genes and enzymes. It helps with that gene expression, turning it back up or down as needed. We know some of the names of the different genes. I can get you more if that's important to you. But SOD, catalase, and glutathione are all inside every cell, and those three all help to regulate and keep the oxidative stress levels in balance. All three of those are turned back on and brought back up to proper functioning levels when NRF2 is active in the body. It also has been found to affect every single one of our survival genes. Now, I don't know a whole lot about the survival genes, but I've been told they're exactly what they sound like. They help our body in all of our survival functions. So all of the things that keep us thriving versus in a slow case of decline are brought back alive again. So how would you like to be thriving in your 60s or thriving in your 70s or thriving in your 90s rather than just in a slow case, slow case of decline? I actually watched a man who was sitting in a home, a care home. He was about 91 years old. His grandchildren would go to visit him and he wouldn't even look at them. He wouldn't even acknowledge that they were in the room. They'd go every week just because it was grandpa and that was the right thing to do. Well, one of the grandchildren heard about this science and started introducing it to grandpa. And within a couple of weeks, he was holding them on his lap. He was telling them stories of his childhood. And he was literally interacting with these children and creating a relationship with them. That to me is priceless. But not only that, as he stayed on it, it's got a cumulative effect because you've taken decades to get to the state of imbalance that you're in. It's going to take a little bit of time to get the balance. And even once that happens, it takes time for all the symptoms to be affected. Over time, he started flirting with his nurse. And his nurse and he ended up getting married. He got enough cognitive strength back and enough physical strength back. He was able to leave the care home, move in with his new wife, and before we knew it, he was traveling the country. He'd show up when we do a meeting in this part of the world. He'd show up when we'd be doing a training in that part of the world. And he was always there. He literally, it changed his life. He was interacting with his children, his grandchildren, his great-grandchildren, and actively living his life because all of a sudden things are firing more correctly in his body. He's still a 92, 93, 94-year-old man, but all of a sudden he could live again rather than staying in a home, sitting on a chair waiting to die. He was living a full active life as much as his situation would allow him to. He was still moving a little slow, but he had such a lilt in his step and in his eye, and his whole world had shifted. He did die. It's not going to keep his survival genes alive forever. We're not intended to run forever, but he died in his sleep, completely peaceful, not on any medication. My own mother was on the same product line and died the same way. She lived an extremely full, active day and then died in her sleep. Isn't that how we all want to go if we can? Now, obviously, it's not going to guarantee your long life. You might get hit by a train, or you might fall off a cliff, or something could happen. But if we can keep our bodies running healthy and strong as long as we can and improve the quality overall, it may not completely take away a disease, but it might make it better. It might make the symptoms lighter. It might make, whatever it's going to do, we know it's going to increase the quality of life. So we're all genetically predisposed to something, and probably it's some things. I look at this list, and in my family, between my father and my mother and their parents, we have heart disease, dementia, arthritis, stroke, autoimmune, diabetes, Alzheimer's, leaky gut, almost everything on this list. And I don't personally want to go down any of these roads. So I ask you, what's on your genetic menu? And you can tell what's on that menu by looking at your parents, looking at your grandparents, looking at your aunts and uncles. What's in your genetic makeup? What if you didn't have to go down that road? What if you could go down a different path? What if you could turn things back on and start to get that balancing effect of the protein in your body to be able to help you take a different path? So we're going to take a little bit of a divert here and talk about COVID. So we've all been dealing with this. How can these things make a difference? So I was talking with a doctor last week and said, okay, so I feel like this variation has kind of started to peter out. Are we coming to an end of this? And she laughed and she's like, probably not. It's just going to keep morphing. You'll just keep seeing it pop up, and it's more contagious. It'll be less harmful, but it's more contagious. So you're going to get it, and you're going to get it, and you're going to get it. Okay, so how do we How do we strengthen against that? So butyric acid strengthens the immune system. It strengthens that microbiome where the immune system lies in our gut. Nerve-2 activation blocks the virus from attaching to the nucleus of our cells. So we haven't talked about this, but the way that the Nerve-2 protein works is it comes into every cell and it attaches to the nucleus at a portal where it then affects KEAP1, and there's a whole bunch of science involved in that. I'm not going to go into that today, but as it attaches to the cell, there are portals that it has to attach to. It's been found that that same portal is where the viruses attach to our cells. That was fascinating to me. So it's not like you're going to live in a healthy bubble. We're still prone to everything that's around us. If you touch the virus or you're coughed on by somebody that's carrying the virus, you're going to pick it up. But if you can have the Nerve-2 active in your body and it's already attaching to the cells of these portals, those portals are blocked. So when the virus tries to attach and tries to develop into something more severe, it can't. So you might only have it 2 days instead of 2 weeks or 2 months. If we can lower inflammation, inflammation is what's leading to those cytokine storms that are causing people to die. So cytokine storm, when I looked up the definition, is when the immune system is producing too many inflammatory signals that can lead to organ failure or death. Cytokine storms are not a good thing. If you can lower your inflammation and keep those cytokine storms from forming, it's going to really increase your survivability. You don't have to take my word for it. Everything that I said today can be backed up on PubMed.gov. I'm not a doctor. I'm not someone who's trying to come in and say we're going to treat, prevent, or cure anything. We have natural products that are going to feed your body, that are going to allow it to do what it knows how to do best. The miracles come from inside you. It's not what you're putting into the body, it's what they're triggering your body to do, what they're empowering it to do. So you can go to PubMed.gov. That's where all of the medical journals end up. If they've been properly exposed to the medical field, that's where they house those studies. So the doctors get their latest information there, but a lot of the doctors don't know to look up butyric acid or butyrate or Nerve-2. But you can go literally and find, there's a study on there. If you type in Nerve-2, NRF2, and COVID in the search line, one of the studies that comes up actually talks in the introduction to the study. It says it's strengthening the immune system, reducing inflammation and oxidative stress through diet and nutrition. Backs up everything that I've just talked about. There are 3 specific studies found on PubMed.gov relating to PB125, which is one of the products that Dr. McCourt has been working with. It's not one that we represent, so I felt comfortable talking about that today without violating any of your things, but what we have is actually an improvement on this. So as you read these studies, just know that what we have is that and even stronger. Everything that's on there is going to be able to back up what we've talked about. So for those of you that are recovering, that might be dealing with long haulers, or that have just had it, and maybe are feeling like you're not breathing quite the same, or your heart isn't acting quite the same, butyric acid rebuilds those endothelial cells that line every major organ. So my son is a runner, actually ran in the Junior Olympics when he was in high school, and he's 21 now. He got COVID while living in Canada, and I live in Arizona. Couldn't exactly help him very easily. I mailed him a bottle very quickly of butyric acid and told him to get on it, and he's since been able to recover. He had lost 2 minutes off his run after having COVID. It affected his lungs so severely, he lost 2 minutes. And if you're a runner, you know every second is a big deal. 2 minutes was catastrophic. So this has allowed him to start running again. He's a Marine. He works his body very, very, very hard. Nerve-2 brings gene expression back into balance, which is going to help with the recovery. Lowering inflammation left over from the trauma of the virus can stop it from becoming chronic inflammation. And so those are all things that we want to be putting into the body to help it recover from COVID and be able to bring it back into balance and bring it back into health. Okay, so for those that are vaccinated, I'm going to touch on this. I don't care whether you are or you're not. I'm not here to get into a political discussion on the rights or wrongs or anybody's opinion of that. That's a personal decision in my opinion. But for people that are not, or people that are and are getting sick, I wanted to discuss it because it's something we're all dealing with. I'm hearing rumors that the vaccination is increasing oxidative stress, and so I just wanted to bring this up because there are stories circulating of children and even top athletes that are dropping dead on the field of a heart attack. And you and I both know that should be an old person's disease. Never before in my knowledge have I heard of anybody under the age of 30 getting a heart attack. That is unheard of in my world, maybe not in yours. I'm not saying there's not an exception out there somewhere, but this floored me. I actually read a report a few weeks ago of a 10-year-old having a heart attack and dying. That should not be going on. That tells me that the oxidative stress levels are off the charts, that SOD, catalase, glutathione are not working in that child. And the only thing that had changed in his world is the vaccine. So whether it's good or bad, whether it's right or wrong, in that child, it caused some problems. So I'm not saying that it's good or bad, but if you're already in that position, doesn't it seem right that you want to start to lower the oxidative stress just to make sure that there's no long-term ramifications of it? It gives us a priority to rebuild the cells, lower inflammation, and reduce the oxidative stress. So if you could do those things naturally, if you could lessen your pain naturally, if you could fortify your brain and help your digestive system naturally, if you could lower your oxidative stress levels back to that of what you were when you were a teenager, what would that do for your body? There are no side effects other than just good things. You're taking it for this, you might feel it here, or you're taking it for your knee, and you might take care of some inflammation inside that could have led to something more severe. You might be taking it for your immune system and get some memories back, like what happened with my father-in-law. I don't know what it's going to do for you, but if you want to give it a try and you want to give some more get some more information on any of these for a loved one, Erin Khalil and Vanessa Weichberger are both in the room, or if there's somebody else that told you about this, they can get you more information. I'm happy to talk with any of you again. They can get you my information as well. If there's anything that we can do to help you, we are more than happy to do so. Vanessa, I'm going to turn the time over to you.
At this point, I think we want to share some experiences we have, and I'll speak out to the room. We have some people here who have been on different products, and so why don't I have Erin, why don't you start off?
I'm Erin, and I'm 47 years old. I've been taking these natural products for about 5 months. My health journey has been pretty long. Let's see, kind of forget as you through your journey. I tried to take some notes, but they're over there. But I died when I was 19 years old from antibiotic poisoning, and since then I've suffered with a lot of health issues from.
Can you talk more?
Okay. So I had issues my whole life leading up to 19, penicillin, and really harmed my body. And from that, had a lot of digestion issues. I had a massive anxiety since I was about 17 years old. That fast forward kind of led to a lot of autoimmune issues, chronic fatigue. My joints hurt so bad it was like they were rusted shut and I couldn't put pressure on them. I was an athlete, I was a long distance runner for years. I'm the type of person to have a ton of energy, so it was really hard to go through all of these health experiences to the point of I don't know what I can do anymore. Taking anything, everything from enzymes to I've gone down every holistic pathway to discover what it is to heal, how to heal, from whole foods to every supplement. Brain fog, chronic sinusitis from allergies, hiatal hernia. So I've been on these products for about 5 months. My hernia's gone. I have probably 80% sinusitis is cleared. I get some inflammation. My lymphatic system was probably for 2 years hurt so badly I would limp walking, like inflamed. That's completely cleared up. I would have neuropathy, my entire body. I would have to have like ice packs on my feet to sleep at night. That's cleared. I don't have that anymore. Brain fog, like I feel like I'm getting back to myself. I feel normal again. And there's a lot of hope for my health. And let's see, I'm trying to think. I was going premenopausal early at 47, like hot flashes, and now that seems to all be regulated. Maybe it's the butyric acid. But yeah, really excited. The hernia's gone, lymphatics clear, no neuropathy, and that's it for me.
Thanks, Karen.
Heather, you've got some great stories. Yes, come on up.
Hey everyone.
Fun to share.
Okay.
Thanks for sharing. Everybody.
Oh. Hey, Mom. So what happened with Dad when we gave him the Actives trifecta package? He's writing all kinds of articles. He's all of a sudden started to write a lot, and I think it's giving him better mental faculties, and also it's cut down on the inflammation big time. Have you noticed anything with you? Not really? Not yet? Too early to tell? Well, here's what happened. I had a chronic cough, and I couldn't get rid of it. I didn't know where it was coming from, and I was told to take the GNMX. Okay.
The NR2 activator.
Yes, the NRF2 activator, and it healed by taking it consistently every day, one in the morning and one at night. I healed that chronic cough. And also I was going back to yoga, and I've been back at yoga a couple months or so, and but I was still having a really hard time doing the chaturangas and the push-ups. And it just gave me that oomph to get to start to do some push-ups. So I was impressed, because I had felt like my body was getting weaker and weaker, and when I started taking that, I started to have more energy and the power. So that's my story.
Great. Thanks, Heather.
I'll go ahead and share. It was based, actually I discovered this 4 years ago here locally. I had a voice that said pull over, and I ended up meeting a gentleman in a bookstore, and I just started chatting with him, and then I found out about his story of overcoming cancer, and he told me about the NRF2 activator, and I was so intrigued that I just called him and pulled all the information out of him that I could. And that journey led me to the butyric acid product and also the inflammation product. And when I started on all three of those, it was like getting a new life. My energy skyrocketed. I had no more brain fog. I was experiencing a lot of stress. I had a lot of cortisol. My hormones were going out of whack. I was starting perimenopause early. I had tendonitis starting in many joints, and I didn't know why. I had all kinds of issues related to yeast overgrowth, and I didn't know why. I had injuries that would not quite heal. I do a lot of sports. I was in volleyball. So you know, if I couldn't do my life as I was going forward, I thought, what's going to happen when I'm 50 or 60 or 70? So when I started on these products, my tendinitis went away in about 3 months. I didn't realize that butyric acid would work on my anxiety, but I had chronic anxiety from stress, and so that went away in 8 weeks. Completely gone. I couldn't even become worried about things like I used to. It was just gone. And I started to feel like I did back in my 20s. I was like, wow, where you don't have the stressors like you do when you're older. You're like, oh, I can't do this because it's going to, you know, be an issue. I had problems with my eyes. I had gotten dry eye, and I have children, and they had brought home pink eye one season, and for some reason, after using the drops to relieve pink eye, I got this chronic dry eye. It was really getting hard for me to drive at night. That cleared up within a couple months. I haven't had any problems, but you know, the doctors couldn't figure out what to do. So that was incredible. There's actually a lot more, but I don't want to go on. We've got some other people in the room that can share. I'm thinking, Mr. Kevin Connor over there, would you like to come up and share your story?
Thank you. I'm Kevin Connor. I'm 61. I live here. It's great to be in the Bonner circle of friends. I had knowledge of, from my point of view, the body is a pretty simple mechanism, right? You know, you've got inflammation, oxidative stress, and that's what's killing them. You know, it's like a plan. Baba has the plan for demise over a period of time, and so I did a lot of research and had the good fortune of knowing a doctor in Raleigh who explained to me how the chemicals in the body at that time, this is years ago, having to do with the steady decline of hormones in the body and how hormones were related to inflammation. So once I got this, and he was a gastrointestinologist who, for 65-year-old doctor who had had a shocking revelation as a doctor, to the extent that the knowledge about inflammation was so absent from doctors in the medical field. So anyway, that's the backstory for me in terms of my full appreciation of inflammation, how it's causing the body, et cetera, et cetera. And I had some positive experience from doing bioidentical hormone replacement, like very noticeable. So anyway, when Vanessa shared with me about these molecules, the chemicals, and I first heard that there was any mechanism that could have a 1 to 1 million ratio of eliminating free radicals, I'm like, okay, I don't need to know anything else about it than that, because it's just so simple, right? Free radicals, oxidation, is what is the ingredients of our slow demise to death. And if you can improve the regulation in the body of those things, it's just plain obvious. I mean, it is true. I knew before I learned about these molecules and chemicals that if you can mitigate inflammation, inflammation is unequivocally related to, like, every disease. Anyway, so I've been taking the butyric acid and the NRFT, and for a short period of time, really, just a couple of months. And it's an interesting thing, for me, because I got a lot of energy, I'm pretty, active, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So paying attention to the shifts in my body. So the things that I can point out very clearly is that I had chronic pains from, broken bones and a bunch of joint-related issues. So long as I'm drinking water, I have experienced, and it's just something I have to stop and notice, like they're gone. They're just not there anymore. The other thing is that I experienced that whole grasping for words thing, right? That we all start getting, right? And it was pretty noticeable, and my whole career is predicated on talking, right? Remembering stuff. And it was getting progressively bad. I had an improvement when I introduced bioidentical, hormones, but it's just whatever. And then it's just getting worse. It just gets worse. I mean, FYI. If you don't know the story, it looks like the room is old enough to have had some experience with this. You know, it's, and it's all documented and all that stuff. But even in a short period of time, like a couple of months now, that I've been, you know, doing this every day, supplementing my, you know, my body with these chemicals, I'm having spontaneous awareness of like super mental clarity, like which I remembered having. You know, that fluidity when you can just ramble on something, say things, you're not grasping for a word. And it's like pretty frustrating for me to be in the middle of a presentation in front of a large group of people and like I can't find a word. I just can't find the word. So, I mean, I don't, look, I'm like really nuts and bolts type of person. Like I don't believe mostly anything, but I do understand the simple math of inflammation and oxidative stress, right? And I understand the science behind these chemicals, right? And the problem with absorption in the body. And I'm like, okay, so they're all solved, you know, just give it to me. I don't know what else, but that's what I got to share.
Thanks. Hey, Vanessa?
Thanks, Kevin.
Can I just do a couple clarifications?
Sure.
Because I wasn't ready to
Okay.
present, and I just talked to my mom, and she says that, I mean, my dad had like chronic swelling in his feet. He'd have to soak his feet all the time. He's not doing that anymore. So I was just checking in with her, and I'm trying to get her to take it, but you know, she's a little resistant. And one thing I wanted to know, what you said, Kevin, about the about mental clarity. Yeah, I think I might be getting some of that back, but you know, I wasn't analyzing it over time. But yeah, I seem to be getting some serious clarity back. It's due to trauma, feel like I was getting muddled. And the other thing is that energy, what you were talking about, energy, something about the energy is like, it's not a caffeine energy, it's like a stable energy, which was much more, you know, in the long run. I mean, it's by consistently taking this in the long run, the energy wasn't lapsing, it was staying stable over time, not just, anyway, just a couple things I wanted to clear up and say.
How long have you been on the products?
4 months. It's made a big difference. Right away, I could feel that energy coming back in the yoga practice. I was going to yoga, but I was feeling weak. And I started taking it when I met up with Vanessa in Asheville. I got right on it, wanted to take it right away. And as soon as I was taking it, I could just feel that more stable energy helping me with the yoga practice. I was so surprised. We would check in with each other about it, like, wow, this is really nice. My energy levels are different. So, thanks. Okay, thanks for letting me
Yeah,
clarify.
so just so you know, I've always had good energy until, now the stress and all that, but after taking these products. I do yoga at 6:30, I work out in the gym, 4, I take care of 2 kids, and work a job, so. Janaki?
People here.
Thanks, Vanessa. All right, well, I think everybody's pretty much said everything. I've been taking all 3, the Nerve 2 and the tetrahydrocurcumin, that's a long word. So I heard about it through Vanessa and Kevin, and I have always taken care of my body and taken, ate healthy and did yoga and saw a chiropractor and took supplements and did the muscle testing and all of that. But suddenly I found last year my body just was starting to fall apart. I just was sitting in a meeting one day and my foot started hurting me, and by the end of the day I had to be wheeled out of my office, out of my building. And a couple months later, it still wasn't getting better, and I had a swollen foot, and I couldn't walk, and my whole life had just suddenly changed. I couldn't go to yoga, I couldn't do anything, and nothing was helping. And I went to this doctor, and she said, oh, you have chronic pain, this and that, and you have to take all these medicines and do this and that. And I thought, no, I'm not going to do that. And suddenly this came into my life, and it went away, like within 2 weeks. And I had been on like 6 capsules of curcumin. It wasn't doing anything. And I was on, 6 capsules of vitamin C, and I was just doing everything I thought I could do. And this just took it right away, and it stayed away. And that's just changed my life.
How about to help your energy?
Tremendously. My energy, I work all day at a fairly stressful job, and I noticed that after taking this, that I didn't come home drained every night. I came home and I was ready to go. I was ready to go do whatever I needed to do. And on the weekends, I'm just raring to go. And some days I am just, people at work are like, what are you doing? Why are you just so peppy and so go, 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 go? And I definitely would have to say it's due to all of the different pieces that I'm doing all together. My father is taking it. He has had, he's been through a lot. He took care of my mother who had dementia, my stepmother, and who passed away. And then he found out he had cancer, and then he's been taking some things for that. And he's had arthritis and different things like that. But he's always been a very go-go guy. He hunts and fishes and lots of different things. And he's always on the go, but he's slowed down so much. And he's got a lot of chronic pains. And he was unable to sleep for years, at least a decade. He's been unable to sleep for more than a couple hours at a time without waking up in pain and then not being able to go back to sleep because he's in pain. He started taking this right around Christmas, and he told me, he showed me his hand. He said, look, I can do this. Whereas before I would have to lift up my finger, and that was the only way I could get it up. And he's like, wow, look at this. He's like, and I am actually going back to sleep. As soon as I wake up, I can go to the bathroom, come back, and go back to sleep. I am sleeping through the night, and he's got so much more energy now, and he's only been on it 2 months. And yeah, I'm just so thrilled. So we're going to see how it all goes.
Okay, great. Did I miss anybody? Is there anybody else that has? Okay, I think we're going to open up to Q&A now.
And that is, what scientific studies have been done on this particular formulation? By whom, and have they been published? Are they double-blind studies? We've heard a lot about that in COVID.
Okay,
are there
hold on.
anything like that?
Trish, can you hear what he's saying? Okay. Okay.
What did he say?
I'd like to know if there's been scientific studies done on the particular product they're talking about, and what those findings have been.
Okay. Trish, you want to answer that?
So the particular products are new to the market. So one of them, the Nerve2 activator, has, I believe, maybe 3 or 4, I'm not exactly sure how many have actually been published. There are several undergoing the process of the studies right now down in Mexico. I know there's one being done on breast cancer in Mexico with Nerve2 activation and how that affects. There's several that are in motion, but I think there are at least 3 or 4 that you can find on PubMed.gov. But there are tens of thousands of studies on the 3 processes that I just discussed: the butyric acid or butyrate, the inflammation, the Nerve2 activation. I would venture there's probably over 1 million. I mean, if we did all the math, and I don't know that number exactly, but the processes are there. The actual products are new to market, and it takes years to do studies. It takes millions of dollars to do the studies. So the short answer to that is no, not yet on the specific products, other than just the Nerve2 activator.
talking to me? No, not quite. I can get up. My question is, Trish mentioned the curcumin isn't easily absorbed in the body, and we know that it's to be taken with pepper. And how does that compare to how your process works, which is like something molecule is wrapped or some? I took good notes.
So from my understanding, and I'm not a doctor, and so I'm picking things up from doctors and trying to put it all together, but from my understanding, and I could be off, but I think when we get curcumin into the body breaks it down and only utilizes the tetrahydrocurcumin portion of it. So yes, you're able to get it in. Pepper definitely makes a difference. I've heard that as well. But we're still only utilizing and metabolizing a portion of it. So all we're doing here, that might be able to get into the body and do the good. Here you're only paying for the portion that's actually doing the good. So it just is a more cost-effective way to get a bigger punch for your dollar, to be able to just pay for the portion that your body would utilize anyway.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Question, Kate.
Yep.
For Trish, question for Trish, just what products does she take?
What products do you take? Can you hear?
All of them. All of them. I want the stronger brain. I had been diagnosed when I was 28 with 2 autoimmune diseases, one which was very debilitating to my joints, and the other which was debilitating to my blood sugar, and I would pass out places. Well, as a young mom, that's really bad. You don't want to be driving a car and pass out. And I got so bad with my joints that when my 3rd child was born, I had been pulling myself upstairs. We had a 2nd-story home, and I kept pulling the banister off because I would be holding onto the pony wall on one side and the banister on the other, and I would pull it off in my attempt to get up the stairs. And I was, I think, 110 pounds then. I weighed almost nothing, but I still had so much pressure on it, I'd pull it right out of the wall. And when my son was born, I could no longer do that because I needed 2 hands to get up the stairs, and holding a child isn't an option. I didn't know about the belly wraps and all the fun things that they have nowadays where you can strap your children to you, or I would have been wearing that 24 hours a day because I couldn't hold him and do what I needed to do. So I remember backing up the stairs, holding him on my lap and going up on my backside 1 step at a time because I didn't have the body strength to pull myself up, and my knees hurt so bad. So today I run, I jump, I still feel it a little bit when I hike. If I'm going downhill, I can feel a little twinge in my knees, but my inflammation is so down, and that oxidative stress reduction has made such a difference. I'm not on any medication. I can do push-ups. I have full use of my wrists again. Things that I thought were forever gone to me. I feel better today than I did in my 20s. So yes, I take all 3. I want to be strengthening my brain. I don't want to be going down the path of my grandparents and the slow debilitation of losing my mind.
So,
There's definitely reasons I'm on all 3 personally.
what do you recommend mostly for the joint pain?
For the joint pain, for me, it was a combination of the nerve 2 activation and the anti-inflammation. So I can't tell you one over the other. I believe in them both very, very strongly.
Can you repeat that again? I'm sorry, what products?
The nerve.
So the nerve 2 and the anti-inflammatory, the tetrahydrocurcumin.
That's what you have.
Is that the Optizime, whatever? No?
Yeah, that's the.
I told them I wouldn't mention product names. I'll let you ask
Why don't
Vanessa
you
that
mention
one.
it, because it's becoming too clumsy not to mention it. So-
I'm still trying to abide by what I told you I would
But
do.
this is a
So,
question and answer period, so go ahead.
It's Q&A, so.
Optimend for lowering inflammation, genomics for activating the nerve 2, and I take both every day.
Great.
My question here. It's nice to get some new information on a couple things. What I don't like hearing is the nerve 2 activators. In other words, I came away with butyric acid to do some research on what are these so-called activators? What is it?
He's wanting to know what the NRF2 activation is. Did you?
Yeah.
Okay.
In
Yeah.
other words, very nice that I came
Okay.
away learning about butyric acid.
Did you
but-
come in later? We had the slides up of the cell. Did you see that?
No, I missed that one.
Okay. So, Trish, do you want to just give him a short explanation of that?
What she wants.
So NRF2 is a protein in the body, and when it's activated, it acts as the master regulator for the body. So it's basically turning genes and enzymes back on or off, depending on how they've gotten imbalanced as we've gotten older.
I did
So
catch that part.
It's a
Just-
balancing act inside the body.
Yes, so I did come early enough to hear that. What I'm asking is mysterious activators. Are there some names of the chemicals, amino acids?
I think he wants to know about the SOD and the protein name.
So
That's where I came in a little late.
it's a process that's activated by different ingredient combinations. So when certain ingredients come together, natural ingredients, when they're in certain combinations, the scientist has found out that instead of the body registering it as food, it now registers it as a command. So it sees it as a way to turn back on the protein. That's why he was given the award that he was given. It's such a huge discovery. We all know that for every disease on earth, there's something natural out there that will be a result to fix it, right? God's not going to just put something on earth that's going to take out this group of people with no hope. It's just a case of finding the right combination. And he stumbled on a combination of ingredients that opened that pathway up again, turned back on that protein again. And he's actually found 5 different combinations of 5 different ingredients or multiple ingredients in each one that all do it. So over the years, we've actually known his science since early 2000s. He was given the award in 1997. We were introduced to him in 2009. So it was about 10 years later that we found out about him. But the product that we were taking then was activating NRF2 and opening the pathway and then closing the pathway. Since then, he's been able to figure out how to open the pathway for 10 times longer. So it's an increasing science, it's an increasing journey for him as he figures out how to activate that protein better and better. And it's just all done through natural ingredient combinations. Does that help?
It does, and that's Dr. McCord you're talking?
Yes.
Keep referring to. And then just, since I didn't know what I was coming down to, but I came down to offer my discoveries, and as it's affected very positively my inflammatory state, and again, came on it through COVID research, can't recommend olive leaf extract and pomegranate peel extract. Can't recommend them enough. Especially this pomegranate peel extract.
Can you go up to the mic and repeat that, because it's not easy to hear from you?
I can hear it fine. I don't know if the room did, but.
Just the two most important things that I discovered in the last year and a half were olive leaf extract and pomegranate peel extract. We all know how good pomegranates are in antioxidant. The good stuff's in the peel that we throw away, and comes in a ground up powder, and good luck getting it down. I can take turmeric and, no problem, saffron, no problem. Getting this stuff down is a little difficult, but
And olive leaf, you said?
olive leaf extract, very important. Yeah, we all know how great olive oil is, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
Olive leaf extract,
It's
beautiful
an
thing.
antiviral.
It, all rounder, but again, on the anti-inflammatory
Oh, okay,
and.
great.
All right, we have an opportunity to ask, we have Trish here with us, so if there's any other questions. Do you have
I
any?
don't have a question.
Okay.
I just wanted, where did you get, do you have a card?
Yeah, right there on the corner, there's a little
I have
square,
to leave, so.
there's a little square card there.
And there's a
Yeah.
sign-up sheet too.
All right, so any more?
Hey, Trish.
Hi.
Yeah, so the thing that blew me away when I first heard, I think it was Jennifer was talking about, this ratio. Like, I think you had a slide up there that said something about, like, even in the best superfood, the ratio of 1 mole, it's like a 1-to-1 molecule. Can you elaborate on that? Versus how somehow with the wrapping of the tetrahydrocurcumin, it gets into the intestine. Can you just repeat that for me? Because that's the thing that kind of blew my mind, that like no matter how many antioxidant supplements I take, like, I'd have to, I think when Jennifer talked about it, it was like I would have to eat like a couple of 40-foot trailer truckloads of superfood to get the net outcome of, taking the pill.
And it's not to say that antioxidants aren't good. I agree with what this gentleman over here was just saying about the grapeseed and pomegranate and acai, and I mean there's a plethora of really amazing superfoods in the world, and they are all very good for us to eat. But if you're doing it to lower oxidative stress, the best thing we can do is get superoxide dismutase active again in our body. The enzyme itself inside of our body is 1,000,000 times stronger than any superfood we can eat. So it's not that the superfoods aren't good, they are amazing. And we're gonna put something into our body, we have to keep eating. I highly suggest eating natural, eating healthy, eating the superfoods. All of those things are gonna increase and help us. But the best thing that I have found to date to work on a big scale to address my health is activating that NRF2 protein, because that turns back on catalase, superoxide dismutase, glutathione that are millions of times stronger than anything else we can eat. So yes, you would need truckloads of antioxidant type foods to be able to do the same thing as having this protein naturally working in our body.
Thanks.
Does that answer the question?
Yes, thank you.
Oh, we got a question back here.
Are you offering product recommendations, brands, or I didn't hear?
Yeah, so the company is Actives, and there's a trifecta that a lot of us have already started on. The trifecta is 3 products. It's the anti-inflammatory, which is the Optimend. It's the NRF2 activator, which is the Genomics. And it's the gut product, which is called Link. And the link, they named it Link because of the link between the mind and the gut. So when you take those 3 together, it's unbelievable. You can just choose one and start off with one if you like. Some people have done that.
Are you distributing? Or you
Yes.
Okay.
So we have cards in the back. You can pick them up. Yeah. And if you have any more questions, or you need material, you need PDFs of the science, you need videos, you need testimonials, whatever you need, we can supply that. Okay. Any questions here? No?
I think the word you're looking for is catalyst for the nerve to active. Something
Yeah.
that is active, that helps.
It's a
the
catalyst
action,
to the
but
body,
does
right.
not- but
Yes.
does not act,
That's a good
is
point.
not changed.
Yep. It's just telling the body to do naturally what it already does. Okay, Trish, is there anything else that you'd like to add? I think everybody here's.
I think I'm gonna leave it in your capable hands. I wish I had been able to be there in person. But thank you for letting me spend some time.
Thank you, Trish.